Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of our high level masterclass. Today I have someone very special, Brian Galke. If you don't know who Brian is, I got the chance to meet him at our last year's big conference, our summit in Dallas. He was one of our big keynote speakers that had a lot of buzz in the community. And today I want to tell you, if you are an aspiring speaker, you are thinking about speaking as a lane of customer acquisition, we have something for you. We're going to talk about how to grow a business leveraging speaking as a lane. Now, let me just share a couple of notes about Brian. Brian is the decoding detective. He's an expert in communication and a dynamic speaker, starting in roles affected by his mixed introverted slash extroverted nature and social anxiety. Brian used his positions in retail, service, and help desk to master interpersonal skills, eventually discovering the game-changing technique of decoding facial features. Now, this skill helped him climb from being an introvert on a help desk role as a regional vice president of sales, managing well over $40 million book of business, into becoming one of the leading speakers today. Now, in addition to that, Brian shares the stage with top industry figures like Janine Driver, Brad Lea, Steve Sims, who also spoke at the summit not too long ago, Greg Reed, Alex Ramosi, teaching others the skill that spurred his own remarkable transformation. So let's tune in.
Hey, thank you for having me back again. Like I said, we all got to meet at the summit in 2024. Had a blast. I stayed for everything I could at the event because it was so amazing. So,
I love it. Yes. And today we're going to talk about speaking to grow your business, right? Selling from stage is its own skill. So Brian's going to share some notes that he has and his best findings and three things that we're going to talk about. One is building the authority through speaking.
mhm.
Second is identifying and leveraging audiences in the right stages. And of course, the third thing, using a system like HighLevel to capture, nurture, and close those deals. So just to keep the conversation organized, let's first talk about your story, Brian. I
Yeah,
know I did an intro here, but what's your story? Who are you? Where did you come from? You work with a lot of different types of people now, but give us a quick rundown of your story.
sure. So I'm Brian Galke. I live in Dallas, Texas. I grew up here since I was 4. I've lived in right outside the where you guys host your event, right near the Statler, for the last 22 years in a part of town called Uptown, Knox Henderson area. And my story's kind of fluke circumstance. The skills that we're going to be talking about today and what I speak on. In 2010, I met a guy who changed my life, and he was an expert. He was flown all around the world to teach people how to understand others based on facial features. And I actually thought the guy was a fraud at first. So I went to go try and prove he was wrong. And he won me over, and I started studying with him. So he became my mentor. I'd drive from Dallas to Fort Worth. It's like 45 minutes away. And the skills I realized were helping me because, as you mentioned earlier, I'm an introvert by nature, but I love to be around people. And so sometimes the worst part about that is you're in the prison of your own mind in a public setting. And I had always picked up books, like if you can see on my back shelf here, I've got body language books, negotiations, you name it. And those are great, but those are reactive skills. And what really changed it for me was this was a proactive skill that when I walked into a room, when I started learning to focus on other people, I learned to get out of my own way. And it completely changed my life. So I wasn't telling people at work what I was doing, but we kept winning more business and I kept getting promotions because I was getting along with customers, I was getting along with people internally, and it's because I was learning to focus on them. And when you really truly focus on how do you help other people and how do you understand other people, it's amazing what we can accomplish.
I love that. So I know you have some slides that you want to share so that way
Hmm.
we keep our conversation organized. So those of you that are watching this live, tell us what city and state you're checking in from. Maybe you're an aspiring speaker. Maybe you've already spoke on stages, or maybe you're not an official speaker, but you get on stages anyway from a sales functionality or marketing functionality to bring awareness to your brand. Either way, I would love for you to chat in the comments. Tell us what city and state you're from. Maybe you met Brian at the summit just like I did. So, engage with us. We're watching the comments. We love to hear from you. So, Brian, the first thing that I think we have to talk about is speaking to grow your business. What is that
Right.
concept altogether?
Sure. We're going to, like I said, I got a PowerPoint that's here that's going to talk about my personal journey because there are different ways that people can get into speaking. But what we're going to talk about today is like some ways that people don't always think about. You know, a lot of times people think, oh, well, I'm going to be like Tony Robbins or whatever. And all of a sudden you go from never having a message to standing in front of thousands of people. And that's just not the reality of how it is. But the thing about speaking is really it's a skill everybody needs to learn because even if you're not on a stage, you have to learn to talk about your service, your product in a way that interests people. And the big difference is when you really learn to get your message down, you just go from one to one, like you and I are talking, to one to many. That's the power of what we're going to talk about today is what are the different, when I say stages, everybody thinks it's a big stage in an auditorium full of thousands of people. But really, a stage is any opportunity that you have to share your message. And it could be in a networking event, it can be on a podcast, it can be up on a stage in front of a room. And so that's what we're going to share with everybody is just how do you kind of get going? And then what are the ways to really enter into the speaking world? And how can you kind of get there a little bit quicker? And I'm happy to share, I've been doing this full-time speaker for a little over 2.5 years, and it's a very slow start. It's not like you go, hey, I'm going to be a speaker, and next thing you're up on a big stage. No, it's a lot of just like going to the gym and everything else. It's a lot of reps that get you results over time. So what we'll do is we'll pop up the PowerPoint here.
As you're pulling that up, the funny thing for me is I speak on a lot of stages
Mhm.
over time as well on behalf of High Level and things that we do. And I find myself becoming introverted sometimes because I'm in front of so many people all the time. And it's just like sometimes it's the reverse, right? Then I have to kind of take myself out of it and
Yes.
remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing.
You would be amazed at how many of the speakers who get up and completely rock a stage are actually introverts.
Yep.
And well, I think you know because you guys have him on all the time. Matter of fact, I just saw on Instagram you had him back on again. Frank Kern is one of the bigger introverts in the world.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, as the, but you wouldn't know it because he just does such an amazing presentation when he's on stage. And that's what we're going to talk about today is really, if you make your message about helping somebody else, you can overcome those introverted phases. But yes, I've been amazed how many green rooms I've been in with big name speakers that I always idolized, and we're back there. And some of them have in headphones that they don't want to talk to anyone because they have to mentally get ready to be on stage. I know one who we mentioned his name earlier, but I won't call him out here, who the minute he gets off stage, he beelines for his hotel room because he has to go hide and like recharge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the good news is everybody thinks that all these people who are successful on to be on a stage are extroverts and they're not. A majority of them are introverts. There's always extroverts as well, and sometimes we're a mix of all the above. But the reason that people overcome their introvertedness is because they want to help others, and so they get up to share that message. And that's like everything else we're going to talk about today is when you have that, when you're trying to help people and that's your goal, people over profit, profit can come later. But if you're not taking care of people, you'll profit one time and then you're done. So, with that, let's kind of jump into it. So, we are going to talk about how to grow your business through speaking. And like we mentioned before, speaking isn't just on stages. Podcasts have helped me more sometimes than stages have. So, like we talked about, look, this is just my story, my experience. Results vary from person to person, but we're just going to share how did I get there and how did I grow my business today. So, the first part is everybody thinks, well, okay, I'm just going to be a speaker. The first thing you have to say, I want to be speaking about what? So, when I got started, I knew I was doing presentations for a technology company, and that was my favorite part. I hated doing the paperwork. I hated answering. We used to do government contracts. So those are called RFPs, requests for proposals, hundreds of pages long. And I'd read through them and I'd create the PowerPoint deck and all that kind of stuff. But it was the presenting that I loved more than anything else. So I knew I wanted to speak, but I didn't know what I wanted to speak on. And then how was I going to start speaking? Well, what happened is that skill that we talked about earlier, I met the guy, Mac Fulfer, who became my mentor back in 2010. In 2011, I drive from Dallas to Fort Worth to learn from him. And then 2012, I got certified. And I started putting it into practice. I would practice it everywhere I went. I'd go to restaurants, I'd go to bars, I'd leave out books, and I would ask people about their facial features, and I'd show them in the books like where it was, and I'd ask if it was accurate. And what I realized is this is a skill that changed my life. And so I wanted to be a product of the product. And in 2019, I reached out to my mentor and I said, you know, this skill has absolutely changed my life. Are you okay if I start teaching it as well? Because I want to give back like you gave to me. And he said, absolutely. And that's when Subtle Skills was born. I actually started working on it in 2017, but I really hit the gas in 2019. But as you know, in 2020, we didn't get to go on stages for a while. So,
That's right.
but I at least had the idea of what I wanted to do. And how did that come about? Well, I thought, okay, I want to get into speaking. So I did what pretty much everybody else did is I went and bought books. I bought all of Russell Brunson stuff. I bought, you name it, Dan Kennedy, anybody who's out there. And then I went to classes, I took seminars, and what they kind of all had in common was just, oh, well, it's all sales and marketing. And back then it was, well, just run ads. And that was a popular thing back, especially when people couldn't go anywhere for a while. But ads and social media are good. That's a great place to start. Like, if you go look on my Instagram, I'm at almost 200,000 followers, all organic, because I'm consistently sharing a message that's out there. And the kind of nice part about social media is you get feedback. Now, you'll get a lot of haters because there's some people who have trolling accounts. But if you remember, haters are helpers because when they ask you questions, you have to think differently about how to respond. So while sometimes they're unnerving, they actually help you in the long run. But what I also didn't know is I knew, okay, well, I wanted to teach this skill, but I didn't know who my audience is because why? Everybody has a face. And what I realized is if you don't know who your avatar is, you can waste money in advertisements, boosting posts, you name it, because it's like they always say, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. And that's been a big thing. Like a lot of the people here, they're agency owners and they got to figure out, okay, who's their ideal client? Is it dentist office? Is it moving companies? If they just say, well, I'm going to help every business, people don't want the Walmart approach where you carry everything. They want the strategic approach of why are you here? How are you going to specifically help me in my business? So it's counterintuitive, but the more specific you get in your audience and your avatar, the better you'll do because you're attracting your ideal client. And that's where we really have to start is who is it that I want to help? And we can start that with what's my background? Because if I went into, like, for example, if I went and tried to explain to a dentist office why to hire me as a speaker to train their staff, well, if I don't know the first thing about dentistry, it doesn't help. But I know about customer service. So you just start taking the different angles. And what do a lot of companies have when you're getting started into sales or into business is all sales teams have a budget. So that's where a lot of things start out as sales training because every company is always looking for an edge in that one. But really what I wanted to do is figure out who was my ideal client. So what did I start doing? I started talking to everybody to figure out like, hey, where does this resonate? Where does it not? So start with friends, family. By the way, they're not always the most supportive. But when you go to networking events, talk about your topic and see what reactions you get. And it's like anything else. When you start getting good reactions, make note of it. When people get turned down or turned off by what you're talking about, kind of learn to remove that. So again, it goes back to reps. Talking to people is really the first stage because if you know anything about comedians, we see their finished product where they're up on a stage in front of thousands of people, but they actually go to local comedy clubs and they try jokes out to see if they work or not. And if it works at one club, they'll add it. If not, they get rid of it. Then they go to the next comedy club and they try it because while it worked at one comedy club, it may fail at the other one. So it's just getting feedback from people all the time. And a lot of times what we're excited to share doesn't make sense to other people. So that's why you have to really learn to clarify your message to people because it's a concept that we're passionate about, but they don't understand. So when I first started, I used to call it face reading, which it is. But when you say that, people are like, ooh, can you read palms too? But when I changed it to decoding facial features, oh, wait, okay, now I'm interested in it. So you got to learn how do you perfect your pitch, and that's the first place to talk. Once you get past like talking to people, then go and find other people that you look up to who are already doing it. So I looked at people like body language experts. My friend Janine Driver, her book's over here. You Say More Than You Think. That's a great body language book. And I started looking at how is she getting clients? How does she post on social media? So there's nothing wrong with when you admire someone, don't copy them word for word. Don't steal their landing pages and things like that. But look and see what's working. I sign up for so many people's funnels because I want to understand the message that they have to then see how are they landing clients. So model successful people. What do we do is if you take up any sport, you hire a pro to teach you the way. So you don't have to necessarily hire people. You can follow people at the exact same time. And you'd be surprised if you reach out to people on social media, A lot of times people answer their own DMs. Now, not always, but I've gotten to meet some amazing people because I just shot them on Instagram a DM and started conversations with them. The other thing I did is I paid for access to people. So get in rooms where you can just learn from everyone. And a big mistake, and I say this, it's going to sound counterintuitive, don't only go for the speakers. Now, the speakers are good. Like if there's speakers I want to see, I'll go. But it's the people in the room is where the real power is. So, for example, I spoke at the 2024 summit. I hope to be back in 25. Okay. But what did I do? I went to every single event that our VIP package included. I went to the baseball fields and talked to people. I went every time that the speaker room opened up, even on days when I wasn't speaking, you know, that one that was down on the lower level, I was in that room. And what did I do before that? Is I would buy tickets to every single event I could. And depending on the event, I would go and buy either the high level ticket that gave me access to the people I wanted to be close to. But sometimes I just didn't have the time and money to buy the VIP ticket. So I'd buy the lowest ticket, but I'd show up in the room. Now, something that I did personally is normally when you see me speaking, I'm in a vest because it's part of my brand. What that started to do for me over time was I could show up to other people's events and people recognized me. And you want to learn to stand out. We'll kind of explain why that is here in a minute, but get in the right rooms to learn from other people. And that's what gets you noticed is all of a sudden people are like, oh, look, it's Brian. He's in this one. Oh, Brian's in this mastermind. People start to pay attention when you're there. And the reason to buy tickets and things is it shows people that you're willing to invest in yourself. And when you give up time, which is the one thing that we don't know how much we have in this world, but when you give up time to show up to events and learn, it excels things so much. One of the things that we learned when we all couldn't leave our houses was while online learning is incredible, in-person learning is 10 times better. You know, so are there events I can't go to that I buy the recordings to? Absolutely, because I want to learn what was there. But what I'm missing is the networking that takes place. So you may not know this, but in 2022, Steve Sims was my speaking coach, and I went to the High Level Summit in 2022 because he was a keynote speaker. And I was so blown away by everybody that was there. That's how I first got to meet people at High Level. Was I went as Steve's guest and I networked when I was there. And then I attended a few other meetings that you guys had here locally in Dallas because you just want to invest and go to live events to meet the right people. And again, it's not always the organizers. Sometimes it's the people in the room who are either needing your help or they already have answers that what you're looking for help for. So that's why I say go and network with everyone, but you have to go in with the right mindset of how can I help other people? We all know the people who come in like with business cards and like, oh, here you go. Here's a business card. And yeah, here you go. And it's like asking to get married before you've gone on a date. It's like, wait, whoa, hold on. We got to get to know each other a little bit. But when you really have that giving mindset of how can I help the other people in the room, you'll be drawn towards the right things. And that's, again, where your message, when you figure out where are you ahead of other people, that's when you can make that part of your message of how can you help your customers at the same time. So I've gone to masterminds where there are people that are so high up that I thought they were untouchable to me. And I hear about their problems and I actually know how to solve their problem. And that it does two things. It brings them down, not in a negative way, but not on the pedestal I put them on. But it also made me realize I have more knowledge than I actually had. So then when you're in person, you can learn to connect with people. You know, and like I said earlier, it's all the people in the room because you never know. It's the organizer, it's the speakers, it's somebody who's sitting next to you. Get and talk to everybody. Um, Knowledge gets you noticed. So the reason I put this one in here is when you start helping more people, then all of a sudden people are like, hey, have you met Brian? Hey, have you met Paulson? You know, when people hear, like, let's say that you and I are talking and like Joel, who helps me out with stuff. If you're like, well, I'm having this problem, I can't figure out this landing page or this funnel. I'm like, let me introduce you to Joel. Now, I don't get any benefit out of that other than you have a need. I know someone who can help solve that need. So when you start doing that, what happens is people start paying attention when your name keeps coming up, like, well, Brian helped me with this, or Paulson helped me with that. And organizers who are putting events together are paying attention that you're investing in yourself, but then you're investing in others at the same time. And what happens is if me referring you to Joel, for example, helps you out, then you're going to think of me when another need comes up. So we live in a reciprocal society. It's not a, you know, tit for tat, but when somebody helps us, naturally we want to help them on later on. So that's why when you learn to give first, that's ultimately how you learn to receive things. So get in those rooms, provide value to the other people that are there. I've gone to events before and been like to the organizers, hey, what can I help you with? A good example of that is somebody, well, actually, this guy right here, Rene Rodriguez, had an event in Dallas. And I said, hey, I can't come to your event, but I live in Dallas. What can I help you with? I'm familiar with the area. Do you need restaurant recommendations? And then I ended up just stopping by his event and getting to spend time with him. So there's so many different ways that you can help people. It doesn't have to be that you give them free access to your courses or your services. Little things matter. If you've never heard the quote, and I don't know who it's from, but I love it, and that is little hinges swing big doors. So little things matter over time. Like I mentioned before, once you start getting out there, word starts to spread. And when enough people hear your name, all of a sudden people start reaching out to you. So the podcasts are a hidden gem to a large degree for a few reasons. But podcasters start to notice you, and all of a sudden you start getting requests. Hey, can you come be on my podcast? Well, that's perfect because podcasts, you don't have that social anxiety of getting up on stage in front of other people, but you're learning to share your message. And the more you share it, that's when you start to refine it more and more. And all of a sudden, what do most organizers do? They watch podcasts when they're driving around, they're doing things. Their friends have podcasts. We end up on somebody's podcast, and somebody's like, hey, I want you to get on my event because they liked who they got to meet on the podcast. So, we all go back 10 years ago when there wasn't really podcasts. It was, oh, you got to have, this kick-ass funnel or this great web page. Really now the way people get to know you is through podcasts. And with that same thing, continue to provide value. Every podcaster is thinking, who will benefit my audience? What do you bring? Event organizers, they need to sell tickets to things. So you have to always be a giving mindset to help out everyone. And there's benefits to that. So as soon as you do that, is when you continue to show up over and over again, that's when people go, okay, if they're willing to invest in themselves, I'm willing to help them out as well. And again, your name just spreads with the more good that you do. And the good is you can be paid for a service and provide a fantastic product. That's doing good. And the consistency can be so many different things. Again, if I've got 5 customers and I make all 5 happy, well, they're going to refer me to other people. Now, what I will also tell you is when you're given a chance, take it. Absolutely take it. You would be amazed how many people that, like when I was first starting out, offered me the helping hand. It's the only reason that I'm here today. Because when they came in, I'll just go into the story. I was taking notes. That's the way I pay attention on things. And I sent it to Brad Lee. And Brad called me. And I'm like, wait, Brad called me? Like that blew my mind because it came from Vegas. And I thought, oh, telemarketer. He's like, hey, it's Bradley. Give me a call back. And I fanboyed out from me. I was like, oh, but it's because I provided value. I shared the notes that I had from one of his courses. I'm like, hey, here's the notes. They helped me. Maybe it can help you guys. And so when people see that person that reminds them of who they were or see somebody who's striving, you'd be amazed how often a helping hand will show up. And the first big one that happened for me was Janine Driver right here. So she's a bilanguage expert. Her and I became friends. She doesn't mind me telling this, but she was single at the time and she was dating. And she would tell the people she was potentially going to go on dates with, she's like, I'm going to send your face to Brian. He's going to analyze it and send it back. And so we became friends over doing that. She was speaking at an event in September of 2020, April of 2021. And I said, hey, I'm going to buy a ticket and I'm going to buy the VIP one because I want to hang out with you and Brad. And she goes, no, you're not. I go, well, why? I want to go. And she said, because you're going to come as a speaker. And what happened is Janine gave up 15 minutes of her time to let me talk. And I was horrible, but she gave me my first opportunity. And that's the thing is I could have easily backed down and said no. But when people offer you, you usually get just one opportunity early on to get that level of help. So take it. And I'll be honest, I was not prepared at all. I had a crappy GoDaddy website. I didn't have a CRM. I didn't have a landing page. I didn't have a giveaway. I didn't have a lead magnet, nothing. So when I got done, I'm like, okay, well, I'm Brian Galke, Subtle Skills, thanks. And that was such a waste of a golden opportunity. And that's one of the reasons, like, we're going to show you later on how I have my HighLevel system set up so that I can capture leads. How do I follow up? You name it. But I didn't have that because I didn't know that's what was needed at the time. But if you get your system set up right, it makes such a big difference now. So I mentioned before, when people think stages, podcasts, you name it, what they don't always realize is with podcasts, yes, it's just like right now, you and I talking, but how many people live in the audience? And the other nice thing about podcasts are once you share your message, people see you as an authority, right? And they buy into your message and then they buy into you. You know, because we see people and what do we think at first? Like, I don't know if I trust this person. But through conversations, that's what podcasts are, just like you and I today. And I realize I'm more presenting than us talking, but when you get on podcasts, you have conversations with people. And that's when people really get to decide, do they like you or not? So I love podcasts. And as I mentioned before, you get asked questions that help you clarify your message even more. So what I started with in 2022 as how I talked and what I do and who I work with has vastly morphed over time because with each podcast, I get a different perspective. What I also get is I get a different audience. So for example, I've spoken at HighLevel, so I have access to the HighLevel audience. But some of the people who weren't at the summit will see this. And that'll help me figure out who's this resonate with, who is my avatar, kind of like we talked about earlier. On top of that, they get a taste, like I mentioned before, what are you passionate about? Is this somebody I want to follow? And the really cool part about podcasts are available to everyone. So not everybody can afford to buy a ticket, take time off, travel to a city to see you speak, but everybody has access to a podcast if it's ones that are open to the public. So do all kinds of podcasts, speak to masterminds, right, which aren't open to the public. But you still, people who are in the masterminds who go back and watch the recordings get access to you even after the fact. The other thing I like to do is take podcast clips and repost them. I use Opus Clips every morning. I get up, throw something in Opus Clips, they give me a generator, then I use ChatGPT to fix it. So look, I'm all about AI. This one, I was a guest last month in Vegas on what's called the None of Your Business podcast. And this one clip that we posted 35 seconds later, or 35 seconds long, hit I think it's 2.2 million now, but it's 2.1 million the other day viewers. Got me 300 new leads and 5 product sales. And that was from a podcast that I paid my own money to fly out to Vegas, paid my airfare, my hotel. So that goes back to, I could have said, no, we'll just do it virtually. But when you're in the room, magic happens. And that's where we talk about investing in yourself is go get in rooms. If somebody has an in-person podcast and you can go, go. Because it's a better podcast than when you have to do it remote. Remote is good, in-person is better. And then I'm a product of the product again. This is a podcast back. You can see I didn't have my background then. I didn't really know what I was doing. I had a crappy camera, but this is Steve Sims. He's my speaking coach. Like I said, he took me to the summit in 2022 when he was one of the keynote speakers. But I met him on another podcast. And on the podcast, I told him something like, hey, you need to trim your mustache. And this is the reason why. And he's like, you think I care? And I'm like, okay. But I followed up with Steve afterwards. I sent him an email. I said, hey, I know I was only on that podcast for a minute. This is the reason I told you to do it. And he was curious. So he said, you want to be on my podcast? I'm like, yeah, why not? And after his podcast, he said, do you want to come speak at my event? So Janine Driver gave me my first opportunity, and that was 15 minutes of her time. But a podcast gave me my first official stage as a speaker, and that was through Steve Sims right here. So again, it's other people that gave me the opportunity to be where I am today. A lot of people get on social media and talk about, well, I'm just great and I just woke up amazing. No, it's the people who help level you up is what got most of us here today. Now, since we talked about Steve giving me my first official stage, what are the reasons to get on stages? Credibility and authority are instantly there if somebody has thought, I want to bring this person in front of my audience, because it's that organizer's reputation when they bring someone in. And so there's what's known as the exchange of power, which is when a speaker walks up to the front and they shake hands with the organizer, that's a transfer of power saying, I trust this person to be up in front of you today. And what's funny is when people see you in a microphone, they immediately think, ooh, I want to get to know that person. Now, what's funny is the farther along you get in speaking, you go to events where microphones go away and you get the little earpieces, the lavaliers, the lapel mics, but people don't always see those. So when I first got started and I started posting pictures on social media, me with a microphone, all of a sudden people from my personal life, high school, junior high, whatever, started reaching out going, well, what do you do again? So it gives you that authority and credibility when they see all that stuff. What you also do is stages are promoted. So for example, I'm already seeing ads for the summit this year, right? And that's what, in October? And so because there's ticket sales associated with it, you've got to buy out rooms and locations and things of that nature, is there are definitely times that they're being promoted. And when you're on seen on the flyers and that person saying, hey, I'm bringing Brian to the event or I'm bringing Paulson to the event, all of a sudden people are like, well, I don't know who those people are. So what do? They go and Google you. And because they're trying to do ticket sales, you get to see things like this, which is you get your picture on there. And in these, you'll get what's known as assets. And sometimes you're the person in front because they want you to promote to your audience. Sometimes you're the person in back. But the cool thing is, like right here in the 2024 High Level Summit, look at all the people that are in there. So that's, 15 speakers that are there. It's probably more than that. But maybe none of their audiences knew who I was. And so then their audiences get curious because they're like, okay, well, it's kind of a guilt by association. Like they see, hey, I know Paulson, I follow his stuff. Who's Brian? Or vice versa. Hey, I know Brian, but who's Paulson? I've never heard of this guy. So it's that guilt by association, and then people start looking you up. And it's funny because, like using an example of that, I promoted the hell out of the magazine here. So this is from the summit, and here I am and on the speakers, and I look at that list of speakers. These are people that I bought. I went to their events. I was afraid to talk to, and to be on the same page as them is because of the value of providing value on stage. So you get assets. And let me tell you, these pictures have shown up so freaking incredible from the summit before that I reuse those pictures quite a bit. So that's what stages really give you is an opportunity to share your message, and then they give you material to reshare your message afterwards, whether it's recordings, pictures, videos, you name it. So we're going to, before we jump into the system, one thing I mentioned earlier is it's not always a quick start. The first year that I did things, it was a lot of free talks with my, paying my own travel. So I went into debt to get ahead in the future. Then it became, okay, well, we'll come speak for free, but we'll cover your travel. Okay, well, if it's for the right audience, do that. Then it was small fees, very small fees. Then it gets medium fees, and then you get to larger fees. But the best part is you may not even need a fee. If you're getting to speak at an association, a trade show, where people can see the benefit that your company provides, then speak for free because that's bringing you business. And it's, when you do advertising, yes, you can kind of narrow down to a degree who your target market is. But if you go to an event or an association that is a room full of your ideal audience members, go speak for free. All right. You don't have to be paid to be there. I mean, it's nice that they cover your travel and stuff, but sometimes investing in yourself is what pays off even more so. So go to rooms full of your ideal clients, find associations that they're at. Those associations need speakers. So if you're good at what you do, go and share it. I mean, most times when somebody owns a company, you had to have been able to explain it to somebody at some point, and that's how you got into business. Now just take it from one to one to many. And it just really changes things. So it doesn't always have to be speaking as a profession, but speaking about your product with that authority and credibility brings you business regardless. What's really ironic is it's kind of like when you graduate college, like you can't get a job because you don't have experience. But if you have experience at a job and you don't have a degree, you can't get a job either. That's kind of how speaking is also is. In the beginning, you have to beg and plead for gigs. But then the more that you're out there and people see your name, the more people reach out and go, I want you to be a part of my mission as well. And so the more that you put yourself out there, even at free, even at low pay, people see that and then they want to hire you. And the next thing you know, your calendar becomes more full than you ever thought it'd be. I personally am coming off of a 3-week run of gigs. So I was in Phoenix, Vegas, Austin, Charlotte, came back, flew home, spoke an event in Dallas, flew back out again, and flew back home to be here today. Now, there's times that I go a month or two where I don't have anything. But when people see you out there and they see you associated with something, that's that whole thing of it's like being an actor or anything else. The most in-demand actors are in every freaking movie, right? There's thousands of actors, but when somebody's hot, they end up in all the movies at the exact same time. One of the things that I told you I screwed up in the beginning is when I had that first chance on stage in 2021, I didn't have anything, no lead magnets, nothing for the customers to walk away with. I have a very unique last name, Galke, that nobody can spell. And I thought I bought subtle skills. That's the smartest decision ever. It's a cool name until I realized people can't spell subtle. So what you have to do is create a value exchange of what can you provide with people that makes them want to give you their information so you can follow up with them. So is that lead magnets, checklist, ebooks, say, hey, if you want a copy of my slides, I know several speakers who just put up a QR code and go, hey, if you want a copy of my slides, reach out. And what do? They land on a funnel, they trade off the information. And then once you have them, it's the goal is, and I'm not the best at this one, I will, self-report right here, is you have to keep adding value. Now, I post on social media 5 to 7 times a week. I'm always putting new content out that people can learn from. But I do not take advantage of blogs and newsletters like I should. I send out emails here and there. And usually I'll run like product sales every once in a while. But I need to do a better job of it. But what really changed for me is back in about a year and a half ago, because it was August of the previous year, what did I do? Is I moved over to HighLevel. And what we did is we took a website that was on WordPress before. It was decent, but when I started, I was also a 9 to 5 person. And so you could never find me on the web page. It was just, hey, here's So What Subtle Skills. That's what it does. Because I was speaking for free then, so I never had a conflict of interest. But I didn't have a CRM. I didn't have funnels. I didn't have landing pages. I had no automation, and I didn't have a community. Those are all the ways that I'm using HighLevel today, and we'll step into it. I was using disparate systems. I had MailChimp. I had, oh gosh, I was hosting on at first GoDaddy, then I used WordPress, and then not WordPress, but I can't remember who they were hosting it with. But I had all these different systems, right? So it's like, oh crap, what do I log into today to handle it? But when we moved over to HighLevel, everything completely changed because it was all in one location. Before the marketing company that had, people were signing up and something broke in the automation. So people were signing up, giving me their information, but they weren't being delivered the cheat sheet. And what does that do? That instantly broke my credibility because I gave you something, you didn't deliver what you promised. And that cost me business. But now with it all being in one location, it's different. So we'll go through these fairly quick, but this is a good example. So in the last 31 days, 341 new opportunities that came in. What's the potential value of that for me based on do they buy the highest end coaching down to do they buy $97 product? So you can see who comes in, what's my value, what's my conversion rate on just this 1 week. So this one was from when that one podcast video went viral. So that's 341 people. Imagine trying to talk to 341 new people. And that's just off one video that came in. And so obviously this keeps growing in over and over. So here's the people. How do I reach out to them once I have their information? Do I have conversations with them? Well, yeah. So we created email automation once they sign up for the cheat sheet. Then there's a 30-day SMS and email marketing automation that comes up also. It says, hey, did you know about these other products? We also come in, people send me DMs. I log into HighLevel and I respond back as me. And they're like, is that really you? Yep, it's me. The only thing that's different is obviously I have a phone number for this account for SMS that's different from my own, but I still have the conversations. They'll respond back. They're like, is this you or is this a bot? I'm like, nope, it's Brian. Now I hope to get to the point where I have bots doing it all for me because what you guys are releasing is absolutely crazy. What else do we use it? Smart lists. So this was something I did not have before. And so what you can see over here is like, okay, this person purchased the flashcards. This person just got the cheat sheet. Well, that helps me determine what's the next logical step for that particular customer. Cheat sheet's free. Flashcards cost money, right? So you just talk to the people differently. And then you see down here, somebody's got to contact us. This is somebody who reached out and said, I want you to come speak at the event. All these things are coming into my system so I can determine when I get up, how am I using the platform to grow my business? If somebody got a cheat sheet, we've got them covered, the automation. If they buy flashcards, I send something personal like, hey, congratulations on getting these. Here's a way to use best practices. And I start that conversation organically with the person. It's not automation, it's me. If they reach out for the contact us, you better believe I'm all over that one as soon as possible because that's not even a warm lead, that's a hot lead that said, not, hey, I'm gonna give you my information, give me your free stuff. It's somebody who said, I wanna talk to you right now. So tags help me do all those things, figure out what's my next plan of attack. After that, we do have email campaigns that go out here and there. So as you can see, I turned 50 back in December. So we did a 50th birthday, 50% off promotion. We did a Black Friday one before that. After we did the HighLevel summit, we tagged everybody who did the QR code at the summit because I had a short period of time and I promised people, hey, we'll get you a longer version of the videos. So we sent that out. I created a YouTube video for the people who attended and said, hey, here's a longer version because we only had a short period of time together. But all that was just going back in saying, because of the tags, I knew what audiences to send the information to. So you can email so differently. The other platform I had, if I said, hey, here's a new newsletter, it hit all, at the time, I think it was 3,000 people at once. And what did that do? It didn't do very good for my domain, what do you call it, reputation. So by being able to go into HighLevel and say, only send X amount, this amount of time has actually helped me. And the funny thing is when I moved over, I was all proud because I'm an army of one right now. And I was like, I'm moving over 4,000 emails over here from MailChimp to HighLevel. And when I ran it through the valid emails, that dropped to like 1,700. That was really defeating at first, but you realize it's defeating, yes. People change jobs, not a problem. But I thought I was marketing to 4,000 people and I wasn't. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about the system is the attempt to validate the emails. Like if they come in like your mama something at Gmail, that's not real. But when it came over, that was the biggest surprise to me was I thought I had a bigger list than I really did. This is an example of once they download, you see here, they download the cheat sheet for free. What do we talk about as well? We've got flashcards and other courses. So they get an email, they get an SMS, then we wait a few days. This is what was really different that has helped out because it's that follow up. And when I say that, I'm great on stage. My follow up is needs to be a focus thing because like I spoke at 2 events this week, not including this one, and I need to make a list of what people did I talk to, who do I follow up on. But when you have a lead magnet, it does that for you, if that makes sense. Then here's some of the other funnels we have, book a call with me, free discovery, speaker training, you name it. Are you hiring me as a consultant? Depending on how people reach out, they get different funnels for the services that I can provide. Never had this before. And so I would get done. The hardest thing about speaking is you're unemployed the minute you're done speaking. If you don't have a follow-up plan, you're done. So when I first got started, like I mentioned, I'd go speak somewhere. I'd get a lot of people who were really interested. They download the cheat sheet, but we're all busy in life. And I didn't have a way to follow up with them afterwards. But with funnels, tagging, automation, that's what really changed a lot of it. So what are some of the other things I have? I mentioned before, I cannot remember the name of who I used to host my WordPress through, but it was yet another company. So we moved it all under HighLevel. So now the WordPress site is in here, it's hosted. I can log into my platform. I can make WordPress changes from here. I don't have to keep going to different systems at the same time. And if you're ADD like me, if I get off into another software, I may not be coming back. So it's really helped me to have everything in one place. And some of the things I'm working on future with you guys is the fact that you now have webinars and things that we can do through here is how I also plan to grow my business because that's just another form of speaking on stage is doing webinars. Products we have on here is a few of the different courses. So before I had a different company that I was using to store the courses. Now I have it in HighLevel. So you can go in, create those different things. So you see here, there's closing more with who's behind the door. That's for door-to-door salespeople, group coaching, and then basic face reading courses. Then I've got a community that we just started to build. That was something I didn't have before because I was confused. Some people say, go do it on Facebook. Some people go do it on school, go do it, all these places. I want it all in one location. So we're growing the community here so people can come visit me on social media, but it's better if they're here and we're doing these live courses together. So then you can see, you can set things up, members, all that kind of stuff, have conversations. You're really isolating people back in your community. And we're working on the mobile app and everything else for a collab. Later on, that'll be another next step. So for everybody who's watching today, we talked about the cheat sheet earlier. I already told you it's a lead magnet. If you see this, if you want to use it, what you're going to get is what are the 3 types of eyebrows? What do eye angles mean? Same thing that we had at the summit once before. And one of the things I hope, no matter what happens today, is that I see you here because I was a speaker last year. I got invited to come back, right, with a ticket to the summit this year. So come up, ask questions, anything that you want to know more about that we talked about today. Look, I'm here for y'all. So what do you have for me, Paulson?
I love it. And there's some links here for those of you that are watching. Go to masterclass.gohighlevel.com/resources and you'll get, I think, Brian, you had mentioned something about a snapshot as well. Can you, or did I mistake that? Okay.
No, we've got it. I'm still ignorant to that. That's where like I'm the
Okay,
speaker, but
okay.
not the talent. So
Gotcha.
JB and I were talking about that, and I didn't really know what all it meant.
Okay, okay, cool. So, for those of you that want resources from the presentation, if you go to this link, you'll be able to access these resources, but you do have to have a high level account. But Brian, just to kind of, if you want to stop sharing, you
Yeah.
can stop sharing. Just a couple of things that I just want to unpack is, I had the privilege of working with speakers for several years now. I mean, all the summit speakers and our event speakers that events that we do throughout the quarters. Um,
Mhm.
One thing I notice about speakers is that speakers land you speaking gigs. Like as a speaker, as a fellow speaker, one of the things that I always noticed is that the level of networking that you see among speakers is
Mhm.
a lot different than regular entrepreneurial networking. Like in the back of those green rooms, they're putting together like world takeover agendas all the time. Like can you just share little bit to the brand new speaker that's starting out of like how to get access to those rooms? Like how do we
Sure.
land speaking gigs at scale?
There's so many different ways. One of the ways you can first get started is if there's an event that you can't afford a ticket to, then ask to volunteer. Why? Every event needs volunteers, and sometimes that's a way to get your foot in the doors. Show somebody who you are by volunteering. You may get stuck in a green room as a volunteer. You may be a greeter. That's an easy way to get in. Then, like we talked about, buy the cheapest ticket, but show up to as many events as you can. Just because you bought the cheapest ticket doesn't mean you can't be known by walking around and networking the right ways. Buy the high end ticket. So a lot of times, for example, at the summit, you guys have a regular ticket, you have a VIP ticket. Well, the VIP ticket included an extra day of networking with people, offsite experiences. So that was another way to get to know all the speakers. Is if you buy the right kind of tickets, they include access to speakers as well. And you talked about the way that speakers support each other. It's because we're all unemployed when we're done speaking. Because it's very rare that somebody will hire you for the same talk you know, 6 months apart, a year apart. But if you can refer someone that does a good job, they may bring you back the next year. So every other year they may hire you. And then that speaker, it's very much a reciprocal environment of, well, hey, I know a speaker that is great for your event. If you like the way I speak, have you thought about blah blah blah? And it's like there's some people who want a commission fee for doing that. I don't do that. If I feel like you're the right speaker for the right event, then I'll introduce y'all. And the goal is I got to help an organizer who once hired me. If you as a speaker decide to return the favor, that's just an extra bonus. And the other thing is be specific when you get to meet somebody you want to work with. And so let's use movie stars as an example. If you come up and you go, "Oh my gosh, I love all your movies." Okay, great. You sound like everybody else. But if you walk up and you go, "In this movie, this character that you played was one of my favorite characters," that's how you become different. So I'll tell you, like, I completely in January of 2023, or no, 2024, Chris Voss was speaking in a different stage area than I was. I went back to the green room and I kind of snuck over to him and I had the book right here. And so I waited to see because some speakers don't want to be bothered before they speak. And I kind of went and sat down. I'm like, "Hey, Chris, nice to meet you. I've read the book," and I showed him the book and everything. I'm like, "Hey, look, I underlined a lot of it." And we ended up talking for 25, 30 minutes after that. And that's just be genuine and realize stop putting people on pedestals. And we're all guilty of it. I ran into Dan Martell the other day. I was like, "Oh my God, Dan Martell." I'd never met him in real life. He happened to be in Austin when I was. And I fanboyed it up. And that wasn't a good thing to do. Instead, I should have seen him as a peer because he's a speaker. I'm a speaker. When you learn to personalize people, you stop putting them on pedestals and then you just have natural reactions with them. That's something to do. And of course, this is a simple thing no matter what business you're in, speaking or anything else, it doesn't matter. If you can immediately provide value to someone, that's how you can build relationships. One of the worst mistakes, if you talk to a lot of people that are very successful in business, the thing that they hate is when people go, "Hey, what can I do for you?" versus, "Hey, here's what I can do for you." Those are two completely different conversations. So when you can provide value for someone, so for example, if you go look at somebody, and I'm just making up one on the fly, if you look at somebody's website and you find all these things that are wrong, you're like, hey, by the way, you need to fix this and this. That's providing something of value. Now, don't get into grammar and simple things that sounds like it's attacking them. But if you genuinely find a way that you can help someone, show them, and then see where the relationship goes from there.
I love that, Brian. For those of you that were watching this masterclass, I appreciate you tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your day, but make sure you grab the resources that are provided with this masterclass. Hopefully it blesses you and you've learned some new things from it, especially if you're an aspiring speaker and you're starting out, or you just want to, build a brand one to many from the stage. So either way, we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, y'all.